Which famous person descended from their pinnacle the quickest, hardest, and most destructively? Rolf Harris. You probably need to be an Australian of a particular generation, but damn this guy. It's kind of our version of Bill Cosby, in that it was absolutely shocking and meant a lot of stuff we identified with became tainted. Edit Cosby. Jared Fogle, the subway guy. The things discovered about him are quite disturbing. Prison is an appropriate place for him. Oscar Pistorius, for example, had a rather fast transition from Paralympic champion and role model to spouse killer. Len Bias. He was compared to Michael Jordan and was drafted by the Boston Celtics on June 17, 1986. Went to Boston on June 18 to sign his draft deal and signed a $1.6 million product endorsement deal with Reebok. Came home and celebrated his achievements by snorting cocaine and dying of an overdose the next day. I haven't seen him mentioned here, but U.S. Congressman Gary Condit. He was considered one of the favorites for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2000, but a woman on his staff, Chandra Levi, went missing. In the investigation, it turned out that he was being looked at as a person of interest because he had been having an extramarital affair with the woman who later turned up dead, having been murdered by someone unrelated. The affair mixed with the investigation, where he had initially lied about being involved with her, essentially destroyed his political career. O.J. Simpson. Anne Boleyn. Went from Queen of England to losing her head in 3 years. Aaron Hernandez. Played tight end for the New England Patriots. Fresh off a new contract. Killed his friend, found guilty, then took his own life during the appeal. Bill Cosby. CeeLo Green went from the voice to people who have really been raped, remember, in 6 months. Kevin Spacey. Chris Benoit. What happened was quickest, hardest, and most destructive. First, Benoit strangled Nancy. The next day, he smothered Daniel with a pillow, having administered Xanax to him. Then, a day after that, Benoit went downstairs to his home gym, tied a cable around his neck and committed suicide. Over a 3-day period, Benoit went from a famous wrestler to murder-suicide. Lance Armstrong. Armie Hammer. After Seinfeld, Michael Richards destroyed his career with that infamous stand-up appearance where he was trying to do edgy comedy like Sam Kinison and just ended up yelling the N-word over and over. Robin Thicke went from a decade-defining hit to selling 55 copies of his Creep album in Australia in no time at all. Matt Lauer. Kevin Spacey got revealed as a disgusting creep and almost immediately disappeared from the mainstream. Also, his would-have-been final film role was reshot with Christopher Plummer, who won a damn Oscar for the performance, which had to be an extra kick in the balls. Edit as pointed out below, Plummer was nominated, but didn't win. I misremembered. Icarus. Amanda Bynes. Her tragic struggles with mental health sent her on a spiral of DUIs and other arrests for destroying property, throwing her bong out of a hotel window and allegedly pouring gasoline on her dog. Her Twitter tirades including Drake and topless photos, walking around LA nude. I mean, there was a lot. And everyone just kind of tuned in for the public destruction of her life. It's really sad. Sia was all the way up in the sky when her own film shot her down. That was a nasty landing. Danny Masterson. Jason Russell, the KONY 2012 guy. Became one of the largest viral campaigns ever at the time. The thing was huge and international, and this guy was everywhere. Kids at least thought this guy was going to save the children of Africa single-handedly with the stickers we were putting everywhere. Then, boom, mental breakdown, jerking it in the street. Disappeared out of the public eye forever. Jerry Springer was legitimately a rising star in the Democratic Party, elected mayor of Cincinnati in his early 30s, and some viewed him as the spiritual successor of RFK and progressive politics. Until his career was derailed by a prostitution scandal. He was caught because he paid for it with a personal check. I mentioned this in a similar thread, but during the 2012 Senate race in Missouri, Todd Akin was doing well and had a good shot at winning, until he said that the human body can detect and terminate a pregnancy from legitimate rape. That one statement of his was not only front-page news for like a week, even being called out by no less than then-President Barack Obama, but torpedoed his entire political career in one fell swoop and made him a laughingstock for all times. Milli Vanilli. Rudy Giuliani went from everyone's mayor for being the mayor NYC during 9/11 to a joke. I would say Tonya Harding. She wasn't at a pinnacle, but she sure fell. Honorable mention to Howard Dean for effectively losing his party's nomination over a stump speech that would look tame by today's standards. Harvey Weinstein. He came tumbling down. Some say he was the most powerful man in Hollywood, prior to his fall from grace. Jerry Lee Lewis was poised to become the biggest rock and roll star in the country while Elvis was in the army, but then he married his 13-year-old cousin. Easily Bill Cosby in the time I have been alive. Supposedly O.J. Simpson's fall was on the same level. Paula Deen is the only one I haven't seen mentioned yet, but maybe I missed it. Joe Paterno. Andrew Cuomo or Michael Avenatti. Elizabeth Holmes, the Theranos lady. $8 billion and potentially changing the world to $0 and jail for 9 years pretty quickly. James Franco. Had a meteoric career rise, big darling of Hollywood and academia, then outed for messaging underage girls, assaults, sexual harassment, lawsuits, etc. Honorable mention for Ryan Adams. The lawyer for Stormy Daniels. He was everywhere for about 6 months, and then disappeared after he was charged with something. Colleen Ballinger is worth mentioning, especially since her response made the reality of what she did so much worse than it had to be. Stephen Collins got caught on a recording admitting to sex with children years ago and promptly disappeared from public life, stating he was sorry and that he was in therapy. I don't know about most destructively, but I think his was among the quickest. Edit possibly not sex but exposure and molestation. John Edwards. Multimillionaire, U.S. Senator, Democratic nominee for Vice President. Then it came he cheated on his wife and made a baby that he lied about while his poor wife was undergoing chemotherapy. That ended his career real fast. Jimmy Savile. Benedict Arnold. If he had died in 1779, he'd probably be remembered as one of America's great heroes and patriots. But you defect to the British just one time and nobody ever lets you forget it. Steven Seagal. Back in the late 1980s and early 1990s, he was being hyped up as the next Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Willis, Van Damme, Lundgren, with the peak of his career being the 1992 movie Under Siege, and it all went downhill from there. In today's world, he is best known for being a fake martial artist, a pathological liar, a sexual predator, a bully, a friend of Vladimir Putin, and a terrible actor who makes Tommy Wiseau look like Gary Oldman. DA Baby was literally the next big rap star, and then he said some weird shit about gay people, his gay fans, and got cancelled hard. Ezra Miller. Remember Jerry Sandusky. Louis XVI. King of France. Mates with the Pope. Had a growing empire sort of. Then got beheaded by an angry man in tights, Maximilian Robespierre. IDK his last name. Josh Duggar. Chris Benoit. As soon it was realized that he was responsible for the double murder of his wife and son, before taking his own